only. I also want you to look at options as it relates to this combined school. This combined school um, can take many forms, many shapes. It does not mean that we're consolidating the two schools. It just means that we have to look at evaluating what that could mean for Burlington. Um, Danisco has been successful in another community actually doing something very similar where we've had two schools that maintain their own identities and they shared some common spaces such as the gym, the cafeteria, and the library or media center, while they maintained independent identities with two administration, two nurse, two of everything. So this is a great opportunity that we want to continue to explore with you, and understand what kind of feedback and interest there is on the community. Once we develop these alternatives, no decision needs to be made. We just need to submit to MSBA. Here's our educational program, and here are the needs to support that educational program. After we submit it to MSBA, we'll continue to define and refine the options that are available to us. And then at the end of the year, end of 2023, what we'll need to do is arrive at the most cost effective and educationally appropriate solution that the town can support to submit to MSBA as the preferred solution. And really, that's just the beginning of the design process, right? So once we obtain MSBA's approval of saying, yes, we agree with you, we will then actually start the design process. So as I mentioned, the very first step is identifying and defining your educational program, right? It's all about the students. So we want to understand all of the programs offered district-wide, what programs could be incorporated into the new school, understand what the spatial relationships and adjacencies are of those programs, and then all of that will help us identify and define the space needs and total square footage for the project. So this chart's a little overwhelming, but I just want to try to quickly walk through it with you. Again, MSBA as a partner has a lot of experience and a lot of success under their belt. And part of that is understanding enrollment and forecasting enrollment. So MSBA is saying for the next 10 years through 2032, K through 5 enrollment on average is approximately, I'm going to start rounding, 1,590 students. So what does that mean to the town of Burlington? How did we even arrive at 325 students, right? So I don't know if you can see my mouse as I move it, but how MSBA arrived at 325 students is what they do is they take the capacity of general classrooms from each of the schools, with the exception of Fox Hill. They take the number of classrooms and they, well, thanks to Dr. Conti and the effort that was put forth through Burlington, they've agreed that each class size will be 18 students in a classroom. That's another huge win for the town of Burlington, because normally they say it's 23, 24 kids in a classroom. And understanding how important Burlington places the emphasis on small class size, they've agreed to establish 18 students per classroom throughout the district. So you take the number of classrooms at 18 students will give you the capacity of the schools, with the exception of Fox Hill. You get your capacity, you subtract the enrollment projections through 2032, and that arrived at the number of students that we need to study for both Fox Hill only or combined Fox Hill Pine Glen school. So what you'll see is that, just so it's not arbitrary. They really, there's a process and a system that they go through to arrive at these numbers. So again, just to reaffirm that how many classrooms per grade, that's really important consideration, is you take the total number of students, divide it across the 6 grades, K through 5, at 18 students per classroom, and that kind of just tells us how many classrooms there will be per grade at 18 students per class. But that's only part of the story, right? Burlington, I'm really just starting to get to know you, and I just want to say what an amazing um, educational program that you offer your students. The low number of students in classes, but it goes so much more beyond that. You have so much support for all of your students, and it's really uh, wonderful to engage and see and be a part of. So when you look at the programs, this is how MSBA breaks down the categories. We have core academic, which includes the general classrooms, but it also includes all the support spaces required for the students, such as a science, tech, engineering classroom, ELL, literacy and math specialists, tutors, all the support that's needed to support the whole student. Then, when you start looking at special education, again, Lexington has a huge commitment, has made a huge commitment to these students. And you'll see that the amount of space that's required to support the programs that you have committed to is, is wonderful. Um, these special ed spaces include the lab program that is at the Fox Hill School, the DSC program, which is another district-wide, it's a district-wide program at Pine Glen. It also provides the other special ed support spaces such as speech and language, a BCBA learning center, small group. It goes on and on. So you'll see in comparison to what you currently have that this existing Fox Hill school just is not adequate to support your program. Then you start looking at some of the other categories, providing adequate and appropriate spaces for art and music, health and PE, which is your gym, your library or media center, dining, which includes your cafeteria, your kitchen. And at elementary school levels, typically there's no auditorium, right? So what we say in architect speak, it's a cafetorium, and where we'll have a stage in the cafeteria, which can double as your assembly space. As long as so that's part of the dining category, as well as teacher dining. Your medical or nurse's office and your administration, you can see you do not have sufficient or adequate space to support those staff that really are, the backbone, as well as your custodial and maintenance requirements. So when you look at all of the space requirements to support your amazing educational program, and I'm just going to round, for a Fox Hill only student using MSBA standards, which are the square footages that they want you to use. They don't want you to go lower than what they feel is appropriate, which is another great reason to partner with them. They support the education. You're looking at somewhere around 64,000 square feet of net floor area. Those are the spaces within the building. That's the size of the classroom, size of the spaces. And then the overall building is approximately 95,000 square feet for 325 students. When you look at perhaps combining the two schools, you're looking at somewhere around 100,000 square feet for a program and a building size of about 150,000 square feet. So there are some economies of scale when you take the two schools, keep them independent, and share some core resources. You'll see that it's not necessarily a one-for-one increase in space. So the school building committee at the very beginning did establish what some project goals are, and that's really important, right? Let's start defining some parameters. So you'll see there's quite a few. They want to make sure that it's cost and building efficient. Sustainability is really important. 21st century learning. making sure that the building meets the needs of all the students and staff for effective learning. They want to make sure that it's a collaborative environment, looking at outdoor spaces for learning opportunities. And as you can see, we want to hear from you. Community involvement and input is really important to the success. So once we got on board, we wanted to hear what the educational priorities are from um, the staff. And so we met with the Fox Hill staff as well as the Pine Glen. And I think there are reports that are issued that you can take a look at to see. But our takeaways are that the two schools are very closely aligned. So, what does that tell us? That the district does a great job in making sure that the educational program is supported throughout the district. Everyone seems to be pretty aligned in their goals educationally for the students. We also wanted to hear from them from a visioning perspective. What would be some architectural priorities for the new school? So once they got past, we just want, operable windows and heat that works and, some natural light. Once we got past that, they really started to get into getting excited and sharing what's important to them as they um, provide this amazing educational opportunity or environment for your students. And you'll see there's a lot of similarities as well. So we started taking the information that we were hearing through these visioning sessions and really also wanted to understand what are the types of spaces that need to be adjacent to each other. We call those spatial relationships and adjacencies, because what we want to do is create optimum adjacencies between the programs, maximize time on learning, ensuring that the support is readily accessible to all students within their classroom or in the vicinity of their classrooms. And we also wanted to make sure that there's this integrated special education. Someone is requesting to annotate. There we go, Bob. Um, and we really want to make sure that we maintain a vertical and horizontal collaboration. What does that mean? That the students can learn from each other from grade to grade, as well as the staff being able to collaborate and creating these professional learning communities to support all students. When we started thinking about what could a school that supports or a building that supports both Fox Hill and Pine Glen, as I said earlier, we started visioning Pine Glen could have its own identity, providing the same spatial relationships and adjacencies as I was just sharing in a smaller school, and Fox Hill would have the same. And then what you see in the middle are the community uses. And then these could be shared core spaces that would be large enough that could support both schools, but that it just creates a kind of uh efficiency in the size of the building. And you would also be able to have, obviously, both schools completed at the same time. So what we wanted to do is we've just started thinking about where we understand the Fox Hill site pretty well. We've done a lot of exploration both about the building and the site. And what we've learned, and we just want to share with you, is that although you've got a beautiful site of about 38 acres, someone else wants to annotate. Um, there's about 18 acres of usable area. And what you'll see is what's identified in the dotted red lines. That really is the usable area of the site. What we have is we have a vernal pool that has a lot of restrictions that we have to respect, which means we have to stay 200 feet outside of the vernal pool, which can also meaning we can't build, cannot disturb, but it could be used for educational opportunities. We also have some wetlands to the north, which also are part of um, Wilmington. So we're actually going to have to have conversations with both Wilmington and Burlington Conservation Commissions, but that's fine. And there may be some rock that may be required to be removed. And we also understand that there's some relatively high groundwater in select areas of the site. But all of that is common in the sites that we work with. So we understand the challenges and how to be respectful of the site while being able to provide an opportunity or a new school for you. What strikes us, and you see, is that what's commonly known as the snowflake design sits right in the middle of the site. And what we do know is that there's no alternative location for the students to be relocated during construction. So when we start thinking about where a school could go on the site, we have to be mindful that the students and staff at Fox Hill need to remain while a new school is built. So we just have to keep that in the back of our minds. What we've also done is we have a traffic consultant that's working with us, and it's a three-phase study. The first phase was they went out to the site in March. They observed the traffic flow and parent arrival and departure, staff arrival and departure, and then the impact it has on the neighborhoods. What we saw and observed has been amplified by many neighbors that have also commented how backed up and congested the site is or the neighborhood is during drop off and pickup. But what is important for us and what we gain from this and why there seems to be this congestion that backs up into Westwood and Fox Hill Road is there's a ring road that comes around the school, and that's what we consider, that's what we call a ring road or a loop road, parent drop off, right? And so it's quite a large loop that goes all the way around the site. So what we see is there were no cars observed to be queuing beyond the loop at arrival time. Yes, there's traffic that comes down the streets, no denying, but the congestion doesn't spill out into the neighborhood as it does in the afternoon. What we also noted, and it's also been mentioned recently, I guess on Tuesday night and even other meetings, that there are no accessible sidewalk ramps, that there's no detectable warning plates in certain areas, signing and striping at multiple locations have faded or difficult to read and illegible, and that signage is required as well. And that there's limited sidewalks, which also is a concern for the neighborhood. And I believe Melissa Massardo is in her spare time, I guess, is working with Safe Routes to School and obtaining money so that they can actually start addressing those issues and concerns today and not wait until a solution for the new school is achieved. The afternoon dismissal is a little different story, right? We started observing parents were at the school queuing or lining up at least 30 minutes before dismissal, right? Some even before that. So the impact of the neighborhoods is much greater in the afternoon. And why is that? Well, the loop road actually is closed until 2:04 in the afternoon, and parents are not allowed to queue along the building intentionally because the students are outside and they're playing, and it's a very unsafe environment if parents are queuing and moving along the site. So at 2:04, which I think is 10 minutes before dismissal, the administration or the school staff open the gate or the chain and allow the queuing to begin on site. So once the gate was opened, we did not see any queuing beyond the drop off pickup loop, but we do understand um, the impact it has on the neighborhood um, prior to that time. And we also want to know there were walkers. There's lots of walkers. Parents, will park and come and get their students. And we do understand there's a lot of congestion and concerns throughout the neighborhood. So we just wanted to share with you. Most people are probably familiar with the Fox Hill School, but we just wanted to share a little bit of our observations. Obviously, single story. A lot of the glass and masonry is original, so everything has exceeded its useful life. Well maintained, but it's time to be replaced. The educational spaces clearly do not match the exemplary performance and what your staff actually does inside of these four walls or however many walls there are in some of these classrooms. But you'll see that this snowflake design and the classrooms really just do not support today's educational learning environments. And a lot of your spaces are undersized, again, with the differentiated learning opportunities, PE being a really important component of the educational program. You can see that the spaces just are tired and inefficient for today's educational program. We do have to study the Pine Glen site as part of this combined school option. And so we want to just quickly jump over there for a quick second. The entire Pine Glen site is about 12 acres, which is actually less than the usable area over at Fox Hill. Pine Glen has some of its own attributes that we have to be mindful of. We have some wetlands in the corner of the site, and there's also some rock removal that will be required as part of any kind of expansion or new construction on the site. Uh, we presume there's high water table and there's poorly draining soils on the site. And because of the wetlands, we too would have to file and go through the Conservation Commission process as part of any construction or expansion on this site. Again, Pine Glen would have to remain in operation for any solution that would occur at the site because we have no place to relocate the students temporarily while any construction would occur. And although we're actually fond of some of the architectural features of this building, it too has exceeded its useful life, and just the cost to maintain and keep it operational is worthy of consideration for a new school. It's a split level, as you can see, and so the lower level actually is not it has very high windows in because it's partially underground, and very similar conditions as far as spaces within the building, lack of space and not large enough spaces. So this is where we are. We have started thinking about options, and we're going to call them concepts because we're just really test fitting. We have the program, and we just want to test fit and start seeing what these options or concepts could mean on the Fox Hill or Pine Glen site. And we have to look, you saw that whole list, we have to look at all eight options. So the first option, which is also the fourth option, is looking at just repairing and providing code upgrades to the Fox Hill School. What does this mean? No program updates, no program improvements. Um, it would only be improvements for life safety, building and accessibility compliance and code, updating your systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, and an envelope replacement. So the challenges are here. Obviously, you were accepted into MSBA because educationally your building does not support your educational program. What MSBA wants to really gain from us doing this exercise of looking at what it would cost to upgrade the school is to understand as a baseline, if you do nothing else, you would be required to invest X amount of money to maintain and continue to use the Fox Hill School. So it really becomes a good benchmark for the cost just to maintain and keep the school. We also need to look at what a renovation addition would look like for both 325 and 650, 640 students. So again, understanding this design of the existing single-story open classroom snowflake design um, makes this option a little bit challenging. We've started to conceptually look at it. We do need to demonstrate to MSBA how this could be done. Um, this would be approximately 100,000 square foot building. And what you'll see is in red, those are the areas or the I call them ears of this. It looks like a four-eared Mickey Mouse to me, but these ears or areas would be demolished and we would maintain what's in white. We would repurpose that for whether it's for the cafeteria and some other spaces. And then we would build a expansion or an addition to that area that would have your academic spaces. In order to achieve this, the building really does need to be vacated. Again, without any other space in the district that these students could temporarily relocate to, this would be a challenge. Um, and the outcome would be that Pine Glen, of course, remains as is. So conceptually, we started saying, okay, now let's start thinking about what a new school could look like on this site. Again, recognizing that the existing Fox Hill School needs to remain in operation during construction. Just some site attributes and constraints that we have to be mindful of this vernal pool to the south, and we want to be extremely respectful and stay 200 feet outside of the vernal pool, which we're doing here. A new school for about 95,000 square feet would be a three-story school, and you can see that this is 30,000 square feet larger than your existing building, but the footprint is so much smaller, right? So we could potentially locate, and this is really test fits, right? We could locate a school kind of behind the existing school. And then once it's built, we would move the students into the new school, tear down the existing school, and really you can see creating this great opportunity to improve the flow of traffic that's safe for both staff, students, and parents and visitors coming onto the site. But for us, it's more importantly, it really just opens up the site that really you can use both from a community resource. We're excited about the opportunity of connecting the trails that kind of meander through the site. And it really will add a wonderful benefit to the community. We also wanted to look at, okay, well, maybe to be respectful of vernal pool, where else could we put it on the site? So we started thinking about, okay, maybe there's an area to the north of the school that maybe we could locate the building as well. So we're just starting to think about, we're going to throw out some crazy ideas. You're going to say no way, and there are going to be other ideas that might stick. So this is the process that we're starting to go through. Um, Looking at a combined school or a two school solution is sort of a different way of looking at it. Believe it or not, MSBA is asking us to look at a code upgrade for 640 students. So there's no change between this and option one. So we'll just keep going. Um, Option five would be looking at Fox Hill. for 640 students. And our approach to this currently is that Fox Hill and Pine Glen would have their independent identities, sharing some core spaces such as the gym and the cafeteria and library. There would be two entrances. There's so many different ways to approach this, but for now, that's our initial thinking about bringing the two schools together on the one site. But you can see it's very similar to the other renovation addition, keeping a small portion of the existing building, building the academic wings, and then bringing the students all over to the site. But again, with no other location to relocate the students temporarily, we're really going to have to think long and hard how this could even be achieved. With moving Pine Glen over to the Fox Hill site, the Pine Glen School does become available for alternative use, such as temporary student space during the high school construction project, your early childhood center, or any other town initiative. We then started again, it's a very similar approach. What would it look like for a new school of 640 students? So, again, very similar to what we just walked through, again, having to be respectful of the vernal pool and the buffer zones that we have to stay away from, as well as the wetlands kind of to the north. We've arrived at a 150,000 square foot school, again, maintaining different identities with shared use. Once the school is done, both schools would move into it. The existing Fox Hill School would be demolished, and you can see that the parking lot starts to get a little bigger and bigger because of the amount of staff that would be required to support your program. But this too actually even opens up the site that you have much more community use and assets by removing that snowflake. We also looked at, okay, maybe we would it even fit to the north? So again, these are all conceptual, and we're going to continue to work with you to understand a little bit more. Again, we're going to throw out some crazy ideas, and this is going to be a process that is going to evolve over time. MSBA, because this is a two-school solution, they're asking us to look at the Pine Glen site as well. So when we start looking at the Pine Glen site, and this would only be for the 640 students. So, again, the two school solution. Um, we have to look at a renovation addition, and it would be a challenge on the site. But the way we would approach it is we would build a a new wing, almost an entirely new school. Once this is built, we could move the students that are currently in a portion of the Pine Glen School. They would move into the new school. We could demolish a portion of the existing Pine Glen and then renovate the one bar. And we're just picking names. It doesn't really matter who goes where, but we would renovate a portion of the building, and then we could move the students from Fox Hill over to the site. It's extremely limited. You can see it would be a challenge to accommodate all the staff that supports these students and leave limited outdoor resources, both for a community, outdoor learning, and play space. What this does do, though, Fox Hill would become available for an alternative use, similar to what I was just saying, temporary student space during a high school construction project for the early childhood center or other town initiative. And again, we looked at what a new school would look at. Again, it's the two school concept here, very similar. Obviously, this works a lot better than a renovation addition, but the site still remains extremely limited. We would build the school behind the existing school while it's in construction. Duration would probably take a little bit longer. Um, Once the school is done, the students would move in, we would demolish the existing school, and then we would complete the site. Very similar, though, very limited outdoor areas for community play and outdoor learning. And then, you know, as we're looking at both schools, right, we have Fox Hill and Pine Glen. While MSBA may only participate in one building, that doesn't mean that the town shouldn't explore all options for both schools, right? So we said, okay, if if we did Fox Hill only with the support of MSBA, what will we need to do for Pine Glen? So we conceptually put something together. It wouldn't be part of this project because MSBA will only allow you to build one building on one site. But that doesn't prevent the town for doing their own school, Pine Glen School. So we just wanted to start thinking about what that could mean, what that could look like on the Pine Glen site. So certain assumptions we had to make. It's 3 classrooms per grade, grades K through 5. So that would be approximately 85,000 square feet. And very similar to the other solutions with no temporary relocation space for the students, we could build a school behind the existing school. Once it's complete, move the students into this new school, demolish the existing school and provide and wrap up the site, right? Provide enough parking to support, a three section school, with 18 students in a classroom. This provides opportunities for play and community fields, as well as parking and outdoor learning. We're just showing this as an example. You are not bound by MSBA enrollment for a project that you do decide to do on your own. So if you feel that you want to have 4 classrooms per grade, that would be totally up to you, or 5 classrooms. So, but we just wanted everyone to start thinking about what that might look like on the Pine Glen site. So before we get too far into the concepts or options, we want to start looking at this kind of from a really high level and objective perspective, right? So what is important to the what are the priorities and criteria? So we've asked the building committee to please weigh in and let us know what is important to them as it looks at equity, cost and schedule, educational considerations, site considerations, sustainability, operational, and then of course community. So we're hoping that we're going to have that information within the next week so that we can understand as we start looking at these options how they stack up to the priorities and criteria that will be established by the school building committee. But now, what we'd like to do is actually ask you to provide us some input. And what we like to understand is what you feel are the most important priorities from your perspective. So if you have a phone, you can use the QR code that's on the screen, or you can just type in with a new browser window, go to menti.com and use this code of 6835 9666. And when you get there, there should be a heart. And if you could just click the heart so we know that you've actually gotten, oh, great, awesome, quick learners. All right. So now what you should see on the screen, what we want you to do is rank these priorities for the new school, 1 being the lowest, 8 being the highest, right? You can only use each number once. So just think about it. Don't, so you can't have everything being the highest priority. So if you could just start ranking those and we'll see what the results are. I think I saw 30, a little over 30 people giving me hearts before. So we'll see how many show up now. And as everyone's doing this, I just want to let you know that there are many people that would probably love to weigh in that were unavailable to attend tonight. So we're going to have this poll, this kind of doodle poll, whatever we're calling it, on the website so that people can weigh in afterwards as well. The presentation is being recorded and will also be available for future reference and viewing for those that couldn't make it tonight. Showing 46. All right, well, still getting love. Maybe give it a couple more seconds. So this is great. So this is really helpful, and it look oh, site aspects and considerations actually just jumped into second place. So it is. It really will shift this. This is really great. I think it's probably safe to say that maybe not all the polling is in yet, but that everyone agrees that the educational benefits are probably the top priority for this project, which is great. Site considerations and aspects are second, and equity to other elementary schools is third. And then cost and schedule, building design considerations, aspects, and construction impacts all seem to be in line with each other, um, with sustainability and operational costs towards the end. What I would like to say about sustainability is that the new code is the new energy code, which will be out for July, will really have everyone, every community, start thinking about making these buildings much more energy efficient, um, because the code is requiring everyone to do that. So, um, while it may not be a top priority, it's a very important priority that we will be engaging with everyone on as we start this journey together. I don't know, Bob. There's saying 66 people responded. Is that right? Good. I don't want to cut anyone off. All right, 68. Oh, people are still thinking. Maybe we'll give it one more minute. I do want to thank everyone for coming to join us this evening. I think there is somewhere around 100 folks joining us this evening. So we really appreciate it. And we hope this engagement continues as we go through the process, right? This truly, we're here tonight to listen to you, to seek input, understand what's important to you, and then as we start refining options and having more conversations, we'll continue this outreach and continue to receive your input throughout the process. All right, we have 75. I think I might close the poll because we're really here to listen to you tonight and we want to hear what's on your mind. So I'm going to turn this over to Christina.
Yes, thanks, Donna. So we just wanted to share with you the next steps as Donna kind of outlined the whole PDP process, the preliminary design program with you, as far as what we're in currently and what our goal is as far as next steps go over the next couple of months. So we're working towards reviewing and the approval of the educational program and the space requirements with the school committee and the school building committee. We're working towards finalizing the traffic analysis study, further development of the design parameters and establishing them. We're going to explore the options as you saw tonight further as we further develop them. And then we're going to also hold a second community forum sometime in July. Once we finalize that date, we'll make sure to get the word out, similar to how we did for this meeting, make sure that it's distributed throughout the entire town and on many different websites and platforms so that the community knows where we are within the process. Again, the purpose for tonight was to update you as far as the process itself, why we're here, who we are, and we want to make sure that you're involved throughout the development of the feasibility study and the further developments that we have to study after the PDP and the PSR. So then, as far as key dates go, after we meet with you at the beginning of July for our second community forum, we're looking to submit our PDP to the MSBA on July 13th, which will then move us into the preferred schematic report phase, and that will go from July through December. Our goal is to also meet with you for a third community forum meeting sometime in the fall after everyone comes back and into the school year so that we can show you further developments of the options as we close into a preferred schematic, um, uh, preferred option, if you will. And then that would lead then to our preferred schematic report option to the MSBA in December. Following that decision, we will be meeting with the MSBA for a board meeting to proceed into schematic design sometime in February. We do not have exact board dates at this time, but once we do, again, further development within our community meetings, we'll be sharing those dates as we have them. And then we're earmarking schematic design sometime between December 2023 through June 2024. That would then lead us into our schematic design submission with the MSBA in July. And then we would also have to meet with the board meeting to proceed with our local funding agreement. And that would be sometime in August of 2024. That kickstarts our project funding agreement, our local town vote, which is a 120-day process. And we're looking for that sometime in September of 2024. So we encourage you to please visit our Fox Hill Building Project website. That is the dedicated website to the building project itself. You will find that everything from meeting minutes, agendas, community outreach information, the SBC information, school committee, FAQ, existing documents, etc., all lie within that website itself. It is an evolving website. It's continuously being updated on a regular basis, and we encourage you to visit that. Please get in touch with us if you have any questions and let us know if there's anything that we can do to improve the website itself. as Donna had mentioned tonight, for any of you that were not able to participate in the Menti informational survey itself as it was live tonight, we will be posting tomorrow morning an additional survey that allows you to be able to fill out the same information and do that ranking based off of that criteria. We're going to give probably about a 10-day window for anyone else to be able to participate so that we can collect that data and then move forward with our criteria evaluation.
So as you can, I think you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Um, this is a long journey, right? And so we just want to bring you along, receive your input, hear from you, which we're just about to do. No decisions have been made, and we want to be extremely thoughtful and listening and making sure that the community is heard throughout the process. So um, this is just a start, and we really look forward to bringing you along on our journey. So I can take down the screen and just open it up. I might just leave it because people may have some questions as it relates to it, or should I just take it down? What we want to do is open it up to you all. I believe you have to raise your hand and Bob will admit you. I'm going to stop sharing because I can't see anyone. Um, and we can always bring it up if anyone has questions. And Bob's going to
Yeah.
be my MC.
And Donna, I'll do my best. As I see hands raised, which I do see one now, I'll try to note them and call them in that order. I do want to remind everyone that we'll try to be fair and give 3 minutes of public comment. And if you do go over that, I will make a note that, it's time. It's been 3 minutes. And if you could wrap up, please. So again, I see two hands. So I think we'll start with Adam Heisler. You're all muted. So when I call on you, I will unmute you and then you can begin to speak.
First of all, I want to thank everyone, all the participants in the committees for your time, talents, and efforts going into this. It really is appreciated, so thank you. I have 2 or 3 issues. The first issue is your traffic flow. I want you to not just do the traffic flow study around Fox Hill School specifically. I want you to go down Westwood, Fox Hill School, and Donald Road. I'm here in the afternoons and I see the buses all piling up. There's garbage, if it's garbage day, there's garbage trucks, no sidewalks, a lot of kids walking home. It's just a safety for the kids. And if you double the size of Fox Hill School, that will only get worse. Um, Second of all, the wetlands, you mentioned that as well. There's all of the houses, my house abuts Fox Hill property. So, and we are lower than the Fox Hill School. All of those houses there, most of us have pools. If you um, increase the amount of parking lots and building space, the wetlands will rise up and cause problems for those properties. So proper drainage, that's what we're concerned about. The third thing, which is not really addressed at this time, would be what would happen to the second property? If the first property were to go to either Pine Glen or to Fox Hill, what would happen to the second property? You're talking about, a decrease in the number of students if that was to change over to some housing or something. I really, I don't know how that study was done that the population of the schools is going to decrease. You guys are the experts, but those are my 3 concerns: traffic and the safety for the kids, the wetlands and what's going to happen to the properties abutting it, and what's going to happen with the space. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us this evening, Adam. Um, I apologize. I probably wasn't. I told you the first part of the traffic study. I did not tell you about the second and third phases of the traffic study. So thank you for reminding me. The first phase was out, boots on the ground, watching, observing the flow, morning and departure of the actual Fox Hill and the intersections there. We have been out at uh, the 2 main intersections with traffic strips, right, to do traffic counts and look at that. Um, what we've heard clear is that that's not enough. So we're going to actually go back out and do a little more study in and around the neighborhoods, as you've mentioned. I'm hearing Donald Road is, we're hearing that over and over again, right? So we're going to expand our traffic study. And then the third part of the traffic study is once we start looking at, either the reduced or the increased enrollment, right? Depending on, we have to look at both. MSBA is, I just have to emphasize the 640 student solution was not Burlington's choice. Like they didn't come in and go, we want to look at this. MSBA is saying you have a need, you have two aging facilities, enrollment in their minds, and I don't believe they have been inaccurate in their projections over the last 10, how long have they been in business? 15 years. But um, they're saying enrollment's coming down and we can help you by taking care of two of your schools. We want you to consider that. The district said, and Dr. Conti said, yeah, thank you, but we like our four schools, so please let us at least consider a single school option. So I just really want to say that being a partner with MSBA, sometimes we have to go along with what they're asking us to do. But anyway, so we're going to look at the two options. We're going to go back and look at the traffic studies, and see what the implications are of the increased or decreased enrollment, depending on which option that it is, and the impacts on the neighborhood. So that is to come down the road. The wetlands. We have an extremely talented team, that we have environmental scientists and engineers on our team. Um, it's very common to have high ground water, wetlands. You may have other poor soil conditions, like you name it. I mean, most sites are what we're used to working with. We'll work hand in hand with the Conservation Commission, and we understand that we cannot displace water any faster or slower than how it currently leaves the site, and that we have to maintain and manage the stormwater on site. So you have our commitment on that. And we'll hopefully be able to improve the stormwater on site. But you have our commitment that, and we understand the sensitivity to all of that. So we'll be back with more, and we'll show you how we're going to do it, and we will be a frequent flyer with Conservation Commission. So thank you. Oh, second property. What would happen to the second property? That is yet to be determined, right? There are some ideas floating around. Um, we understand that the high school is also a priority within the district. How are you going to achieve that? The other property could be used for temporary relocation of some of those students. You have central administration that maybe could use it. There was a conversation about, the early childhood center, the BECC. Maybe that belongs in its own place as opposed to at the high school. It could be used for community use as well, right? So it's really early, but it's a really good question to start asking and starting to think about right now. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Looks like next is Amanda. So I'm going to unmute Amanda. Amanda, we don't hear you. You are unmuted. All right. Just for the sake of time, we'll try again with Amanda, but if we can move on to Alex Ruthfield.
Hi. First of all, great job on the presentation. Very informative. Now I'm wondering if Well, I have two quick things. First, I want to make sure that, those enrollment projections and how we're responding to them can kind of account for, plus or minus 10% of school or so of enrollment. So we might actually end up, if we're underestimating enrollment in 10 years, we might end up with 20, 22 kids in the classroom. And if, our plans are going to be able to handle that. And I'm also trying to understand to see if the feasibility study will account for, if we combine the schools, how that's going to affect overall school operations. You'll have twice as many kids using the same gym space. There'll be more demand for buses because people who are currently in close enough to a school to not need a bus, if that school closes down, then they're gonna suddenly need a bus. Is the feasibility studies gonna account for those operational changes as well?
Sure. Um, so planning for the future, flexibility, both growth and reduction in enrollment, right? This is an investment for 50, hopefully 75 years, right? It's a long-term investment. Um, MSBA actually, as part of the process, asks us as we start looking at the options, how we can be thoughtful so that we can actually put an addition on in the future, right? So making sure that when we think about how the academic wing comes on, if enrollment does eventually come back, how could you easily add to the school and make sure that we're not doing something now that would prevent us from expanding the school down the road. Um, Another consideration, and this is sort of a what comes first, but if it does become that you combine both schools onto this one property, you would still have the other school available, right? So what do you do with it? How do you use it? Would you invest in it and maintain it? But that school would also potentially be available down the road if the enrollment doesn't pan out the way MSBA is stating it would. The other thing that we do in the school is that we really try to be flexible in our spaces and allow for larger cohorts that come in and out through the grades. Mathematically, I showed you that chart and said, yep, you're going to have 54 kids in every single grade. That's how you get up to 325 students. Well, we know that doesn't work, right? So we need to also be flexible within the school. So if you have a larger grade or a bubble year, kind of, right? So that requires a little more space. How do we accommodate that space throughout the design of the school? And we look at that and we create these flexible spaces that can accommodate this short-term growth that might come through. If it's long-term, we'll show you where and how you could expand the building and or maybe utilize the other school if this is a combined school. Your other question regarding the combined school and how does this affect operational costs and changes? So first, what I'd like to say as far as the building is concerned, we would design the building that would be large enough to accommodate two music, or each school would have equal spaces, educational spaces. Each school would have an art, each school would have a music. The shared core would be the cafeteria. The cafeteria would be large enough and designed in such a way that you can have both schools having lunch simultaneously. And the benefit of that is that you have a shared kitchen that actually provides the food for everyone, but the students have their own dining areas. And so, it's an economy of scale thing, right? And then the cafetorium would be large enough or even bigger than it would be if you only did one school, that you could actually have a larger cafetorium for assemblies and community use. You would have to organize. Fox Hill gets Monday nights and Pine Glen gets Tuesday nights, but the parking lot would be bigger, the space would be larger, and it would give you more flexibility. But you're absolutely right. We will certainly look at what the impacts are of having to bus all the students from either Pine Glen or Fox Hill to the other site. It's really kind of favoring Fox Hill. It's kind of spoiler alert. Pine Glen's a really tight site, but we would have to look at, those additional operational costs. And so that would be part of the evaluation as we go forward. So I hope that answers that.
Okay, next we have Elizabeth. Liz, we can't hear you. You just need to click on mute.
Sorry about that.
Gotcha. Good to go.
Thank you all. I just want to say thank you for all the detail here because I've been at a few meetings, but having the slides to look at the details really did help. I appreciate that. A couple comments I want to make quickly on the traffic study. As you said, you're going to be doing more. My thinking on that is being a resident of the neighborhood. You would really need to look at the traffic that comes from Pine Glen if it came into the Fox Hill neighborhood. And there are several roads you need to look at. Donald and Vincent are big ones. Sumner also is, as is Beaverbrook Road, as is Jonathan Road, Moss Street, and Upland Road. Those are all going to become cut-throughs. So just that traffic study would need to be pretty extensive, and we'd have to look at the busing and how that would change things. The other comment I just quickly wanted to make is when we did that survey on Menti, clearly educational benefit was top priority to everyone, and that's great to see in our community. And as anyone in their roles involved here that is an educator, has been an educator, if educational benefit is your priority, that means we need 4 schools, in my opinion, and in the opinion of most anyone involved in education. That being said, clearly school size and equity across the schools is important. And we need to consider that equity with Francis Wyman, in which case I think that's where we need our 4 schools because Francis Wyman's a bit on the larger side. So losing a school might not help us resolve that issue of getting that equity across. That being said, MSBA is kind of lowering our numbers, which is making that harder. I'm not looking at all the numbers and doing the math, but it seems as though each elementary school needs to hover closer to that 400 mark to look more at equity. And some of my confusion too is when I look back at 2019, the first time we talked a lot about this and a lot of people spoke at school committee, the discussion then, and Dr. Conti's words were, the intention is for, there's a need for more elementary classrooms. And maybe that has changed and whatnot, but I just think we should be thinking about that and the equity across the board. And Donna, as you described that economy of scale with the shared cafetorium and whatnot, one of the questions that popped into my mind on that, this is getting into the minutia, we may not have the answer now, but how does that dining hall look when you say it's a shared kitchen, but there's more dining space? How many kids are in the cafeteria at a time? Because that economy of scale is what can affect when small young children are in a cafeteria and how overwhelming that can be, and the noise level. That also leaves me to wonder, well, how do we now create a master schedule that affects both schools based on the cafeteria usage? And how does that master schedule then affect special ed scheduling? In my past experience with that, if that's not well thought out ahead of time, kids end up getting services not at the best educational benefit to them when they need it. So again, I realize that's the minutia, but that's the kind of thinking that I think needs to go into all of this. And I'm sure that our educational staff is doing that. But that's my 2 cents for right now. I thank everybody for their time and effort.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your input. And again, yeah, we're going to look harder, closer at the traffic studies. And, recognizing size and equity is important, right? And equity, not just between Fox Hill and Pine Glen, and what does that look like for the other schools in the district? And that too will be talked about and considered. Just to really quickly just talk, because this is the easy one. I can talk to the cafeteria and how that will work, right? The cafeteria will be large enough. There would be a partition that is acoustically sound. It, no pun intended. It will be an acoustic barrier so that both schools can simultaneously have lunch without worrying about or hearing the noise on either side. And it can have up to, or as few as 2 grades at a time. So both schools would have lunch simultaneously, and typically it's 2 grades per dining seating area, right? So you would have 3 seatings, but it works. We have some schools in another district that this has been very successful, and we haven't heard, actually, and their schools were larger, so there were more students in the cafetorium at the same time, and it works. But we look forward to visually sharing all of this with you, and we do appreciate, it helps us guide us where we want to kind of focus and put emphasis on as we hear from you all.
Great, thanks. Next is John Eiler. So I've unmuted you, please. Yep, there you go, John.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Great presentation. It's really good to get a baseline on where all the thinking is at right now. I had a few concerns. One is, I understand that getting money from MSBA implies that they get a little bit of a control on us. But I'm concerned that we're not pushing back enough on some things that are not necessarily accurate. I'm suspicious about the population approximations that or projections that are being made. Just looking at the numbers from a past presentation with the building committee, it looks like they're doing a simple linear extrapolation from a few years back, which I don't think is how things are going to go. It's extrapolating out about 9 or 10 years for something that we're expecting to last 60 plus years. I think we really need to do a longer term projection. I think the last thing we want to do is 20 years from now be adding portables again to Fox Hill, or trying to add a wing or whatever. I think we need to make sure that we're considering things like the MBTA communities is requiring us to put in more high density zoning. Is that being factored into the population projections? So in general, I think it would be good for us to push back and really understand what is the methodology being used on that population projection rather than just assuming it's correct. I think there's obviously some trend towards wanting, in terms of this presentation, trend towards the mega school, I'll call it. It looks like, which would be a 3-story elementary school, and I'll admit that a 3-story elementary school feels wrong to me. And I am suspicious, while there's certainly economies of scale in combining things, I think it's not as great as one might hope. I think we pointed out the cafeteria really needs to be double sized. Allowing a full gym schedule, PE schedule, suggests that it's not obvious the gym doesn't need to be double sized. If the kitchen is putting out twice as many meals per minute, it's going to need to be roughly twice as large. So it's unclear to me the economies of scale are as obvious, are not as large as one would hope. And so the option I didn't see on there, and I think this is probably MSBA trying to guide our development, is I didn't see the option that says, what about just replacing the 2 schools on each of their separate sites? And I understand that MSBA likes to have their projects be on a single site. I think they can show a little more imagination than that, and I think we can work with them on that. There's no reason why we have to accept it as a given that if we're replacing 2 schools, they have to be jammed together on one site. I think we should be able to talk with them and discuss at least the option of what if we did 2 schools on 2 sites instead of on 1 site? And if you want to give us the reimbursement that you would have given us for, a single mega school because you think it's more efficient, then that's an option certainly. But saying that we get, the roughly 40% on whatever one building we make that they like, and then we're totally on our own with 0% MSBA funding on the second site, uh, seems like we're giving in a little too quickly to their opening position here. It's it seems completely obvious that if we built 2 schools on 2 sites, yes, it may cost a little more, and that may be a cost we're willing to bear. But because it is solving the exact same problem that the mega school would be solving, but just solving it in a different way, it seems like we should be eligible for at least some reimbursement on the second building there, as opposed to saying, well, it's not the first thing the MSBA thought of, so they're giving us nothing. I think we should be able to work with them a little bit on that, and I think we ought to push that more and consider
John,
whether
can I ask you to
Yep.
start towards wrapping it up?
wrapping up, Bob. Thanks. And so I think we ought to have that discussion with them rather than take it as a given what their opening position is. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John, and thank you for your thoughtful comments. So MSBA, I think Steve Brown, who's on the call, maybe I'll just paraphrase him. They're pretty strict in what they will allow and what they won't allow. I will say that this is no one in Burlington has accepted what their first offer was. Dr. Conti and his team really pushed MSBA to give fewer students in a classroom, which translates to more classrooms, which translates to more space. But MSBA is pretty firm in their program and what they'll offer. There isn't really negotiation with MSBA. Again, Dr. Conti did an amazing job to get as far as he did, but MSBA's rules are one project, one site. Does it make sense? Everything that you just said made total sense, but MSBA says you get one project, one site. So they're actually thinking they're helping you. They're giving you an opportunity to solve two of your school problems with one project, but it has to be one building, one site. And they'll agree that their program isn't for everyone. And so if you don't want to play by their rules, and maybe Steve can say it nicer, but if you don't want to play by their rules, that's fine. There's a line of communities that would be willing to do so behind you. So I believe that Dr. Conti and his team have really advocated on the district and the town's behalf, but I don't believe this is negotiable. Steve, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think everything you said so far, Donna, is pretty accurate. Step one with the district requesting, just in addition to the combined or consolidated school, including an option for Fox Hill only, says a lot in their willingness to work. So they were able to put that into the feasibility agreement to study both. But I think in a couple of recent instances where we've been asked for their flexibility and consideration of additional options, it has kind of been a little difficult to make any further progress. And so I think your comments, Donna, about the single, the school on a single site has kind of been their track record. And so I would say, to the extent that we've already pushed back, I kind of feel like we're at the end of exploring other options to include in the feasibility. And Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, you had a conversation that went so far as to say, and similar to your comment, that there's quite a bit, a long line of districts willing to get in that, sometimes their program isn't for everybody. And so if that was, that was just their response. So I think they're willing and they're pretty firm in their position about what the feasibility study should should investigate so far, but John, just to kind of get into your other comment about enrollment projections, it may seem like a linear projection based on the results of that year-to-year progression, but I will not even begin to try to understand the full math of it, but I will tell you that they consider birth population data, fertility rates applied to projected female populations. It's very, very intricate. Donna, maybe you can speak a little bit more about how far the MSBA has come from, say, 20 years ago and how they calculated and learned from some of their mistakes, call it 20 years ago, and where they are now in that calculation.
Yeah, sure. I think just even before I go there, but thinking to the future and doing projections, um, it is, after you start projecting beyond 10 years, it really, that information just isn't even there yet. A lot of communities might try to look at that for some, down the road forecasting, but I think most, um, you know, uh, people that do this will say that after 10 years, that information really isn't as accurate as it possibly could for you even to start using that as accurate data. But to go back, and I think part of um, the conversation as when we first came on was more towards, well, geez, we opened, I have a cleaning crew in my office, so if I mute, excuse me, but um, when you open Memorial, that actually was overcrowded day one is what we were hearing. And looking back, I realized that this was the old school building assistance program run by the Department of Ed, DOE, and not the MSBA, which is really a quasi-public agency that is run totally differently than the way the program ran back 20 years ago. Back 20 years ago, they would say, okay, you tell me how many kids, you go and do your own enrollment projections. So Burlington provided these enrollment projections to them. They said, here's the enrollment, this is how many kids. And the SBA would say, okay, you get 150 square feet per kid. That's it. They didn't look at your programs. They didn't look at your special ed needs. Every district has different special ed needs. They even have different program needs, right? You guys have incredible support for your students between tutors and specialists and everyone. All of those people need space. Back then, MSB or the SBA would say, nope, you got 150 square feet per kid. Do what you want, right? So the MSBA, when it was created back in 2004, put a moratorium on the projects coming in until 2007. So the Memorial School, I believe, was what they called a legacy project from the old SBA. But they have totally looked at things differently. They do the enrollment projections. They get into it at a much deeper level than what NESDEC and some others may do. And they look at the program. They want to start with the educational program. It's not about square footage. It's about what do you need to support your educational program and your staff. And then that will translate to what the size of your building is, not the other way around. So there have been incredible strides in the approach, the thoughtfulness. They don't want to be wasteful, but they don't want you to build a building and then find out day one you don't have enough space. Like that doesn't help anyone, right? You're going to be right back in line saying, I need more money. No one wants to do that. So, we've been working with them since the inception. They truly help us be very thoughtful and think about what is important from a priority perspective from the school department to the communities. And they want to make sure that the solution meets your needs. But they do draw the line, one school, one project, and certainly not on two sites. And you know, they just don't have enough money to go around to everyone. And so they will say, we understand, but this is the best that we can do. So John, we hear you. And I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Conti because you guys didn't just accept their first offer, right? This has been a journey just to get to this point.
Thank you. Looks like next up is Katrina. I have unmuted you, so thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Donna, thank you so much for spending all of this time, especially this week. I've learned so much, and obviously, thank you all to the committee. So back when we were a couple of days ago, we were talking about kind of money situations, and we kind of realized that we were only going to be getting 25% back for no matter what project we're getting. So we're really not getting all this money that we actually think that we're getting to build either a ginormous school or keep with the 4-school model. So for me, I think that is like a big question on hand. And as to if we do keep with the 4-school model, do we have numbers right now for how much the taxes would go up to actually update Pine Glen? That's one of my questions. Another priority for me is obviously the traffic. I am a neighbor of Fox Hill. I do have 4 kids that will be affected by this, so it's very important. And I noticed, obviously, from the other night to tonight that a lot of these are all 3-story schools. And to me, a 3-story school for an elementary school child is, that has anxiety written all the way over it. And I just don't see how these little kids can go into a humongous school, whether it's even just one school, never mind a 640 person school, and feel comfortable. Like, how is a 5-year-old going to walk in there and just be like, oh, this is my new school, great, see you, mom, bye? Like, I don't I don't get that. And with the 3-story school, I do have a lot of safety concerns. Our little snowflake school, which we all love, every single classroom has an outdoor exit. So where is the safety coming in? Like after Ulve, like I feel like we need more safety. Like I haven't heard anything about what are we doing for classrooms? What if worst case scenario hits? What happens? Where are these exits? Especially on a 3-story school. As a mom, like that freaks me out. So I don't want to get all emotional, but I'm good.
Yep, thank you, Katrina, and we all do, right? It's awful to even have to go there, and it hit home. It really hits home, especially when we hear about such horrible things. Let me go back. Let's talk about money. Believe it or not, that's an easier one to talk about right now. Um, we will be running the different models about what each option will cost. And then with that, MSBA does have what they call caps or caps on their reimbursement for all the different categories. So they will give you a reimbursement of, I think it's 45% is your reimbursement amount, up to a certain limit for construction, up to a certain limit for site costs, up to a certain limit for soft costs such as furniture, equipment, technology. So I think Mike Burton chimed in the other night and was saying your effective rate was somewhere, Steve, I think it was 25, 29% of the cost. I think if Mike is still here, he can chime in, but I think that's
Yeah,
what he had said.
Yeah, he estimated around 25%, and that was just based off of preliminary data, just like high level, rough order magnitude. We don't know anything at this point, and that's just based off of, us kind of preliminary putting together what we know at this point.
Right. But we'll put together, what we will say is that if your reimbursement rate is 45%, you can get some extra reimbursement points or incentive points for sustainability and some other things. But um, there should be, it should be stated upfront and very clear, you will not get 45% reimbursement of the total project cost. MSBA acknowledges the construction cost has increased to the point where they cannot continue to match it. And same with some of the other soft costs, such as furniture, equipment, and technologies. So they're still trying to provide relief and support to communities, recognizing they can't give as much on a percentage basis as they have in the past, and that they really just are trying to spread the wealth as much as they can. So the tax implication, back to that, Katrina, once we get some order of magnitude costs, right, we'll be able to make certain assumptions, and then working with the town, identify what the tax implications are for the community, right? And you know, we may go as far as saying, okay, if it's just Fox Hill for this project, what would be the cost to the taxpayers if you do choose just to do Fox Hill, which is fine. And then let's start thinking about Pine Glen, right? Like, how much would that cost the taxpayers, and when can we get that done, and what's coming off the books, and how can this be folded into your master plan? So I think the intent is over, during the feasibility study phase, is that we want to make sure that we present as much information about all of that as possible. We hear you on the traffic, and that's fine. Keep it. I know it's important to you. You're concerned about the safety of the students, and so we thank you for that. The size of the school, vertically, 3 stories, 2 stories. We understand that it's a foreign concept, right? Whether it's Fox Hill all by itself, it's still 85 to 90,000 square feet, right? It's bigger than the current Fox Hill school. You don't have room on the Fox Hill site to design a single story building while your existing Fox Hill school is there. This is more and more common. I cannot recall the last time we designed a school that was a 2-story school. We become more and more limited with available space, the site constraints that we have on the available sites. All the developers are picking up the great ones, right? And you have, you're working with the sites that you currently have. So it's more and more common to see a 3-story school. You put the core spaces on the first floor, maybe second floor. Kindergarten, first grade typically goes on the first floor. We have one community that put kindergarten 1, 2 on the second floor, grades 3, 4, 5 on the third floor, specifically to address your comment, what happens if, right? All the students are upstairs. So every community has different ways of approaching this. I can assure you, you're not going to fit a 3-story, single-story building on the site, even when it's just Fox Hill. But we can explore what a 2-story might look like if it's possible, and we'll continue those conversations. I do want to say that it's a necessary discussion that we have to have with everyone as it relates to safety and security. We have a consultant on our team, crime prevention through environmental design, that works with us. We will be meeting with all of the public safety personnel, both within Burlington Public Schools and your district and your town. It's just really important to be having those conversations at the very beginning and all the way throughout the project. So I wish I had something to say. I've got a magic wand, and we'll never have to worry about that, right? We can't, and we really need to think about the impact and how we can do the best that we can in any situation. So we will continue to share with you, what a 3-story looks like, how we would address certain aspects and concerns and considerations as we go forward. And actually, some folks on the building committee have been on 2 building tours that were 3-story buildings. So maybe not tonight, but in the future, give their impression of what that feels like to them would be great. And is Memorial's 2-story, Bob? 2 stories?
Yes, 2 stories
Yeah.
at Memorial.
Yeah.
Okay, next is Christopher Campbell.
Hi, thank you so much. So as somebody who actually lives on Donald Road, one of our biggest concerns is that Fox Hill has speed bumps and we don't. So we end up having a lot of the overflow traffic. And I know we've beaten that to a dead horse, but I can't reiterate that enough, that will end up being one of the concerns. I'd also like to ask if all of the town land has been looked at, including the rec overlook site or high school land or any other site here, that if we have to then build a 1 school property, if we've looked at all of the property. I do have concerns over the makeup of the committee. If there are future parents that are on this committee, as well as CPAC, Special Education Administration, and Special Education staff, since we have such a priority on our special education with this. And then lastly, if the school schedules are taken in consideration with the building, a shared space, shared gym, shared cafeteria, as many people have said, really end up having that schedule define the 2 school space idea. So a lot to really unpack and a lot more information to come, but want to see if more information has been thought of here.
Thank you. Steve or Christina, I believe that other sites have been, or we've looked for other sites. Is that?
No, I
What-
think it's been our understanding that there haven't been any other sites available within the town of Burlington for us to explore.
So if you, Christopher, the high school, we can take a look. I think there are all kinds of concerns over at the high school about putting, I don't even know if it's possible with all the wetlands and everything that's there. We can give it a quick look. I mean, absolutely. What was the other site that you're suggesting? Oh, you have to unmute them. Yeah.
There's a recreation site called the Overlook site that has a building that's about to be demolished. It's roughly about 30 acres, and that is a town-owned land. And that's why I was saying, and it only came up this year through Ways and Means, that we were going to demolish a building there. But is all of our sites being looked at? All of our availability to build these sites?
We will circle back and make sure that we do our due diligence. Part of it, I don't know where the Overlook site is. I don't know if it's within the Fox Hill district. I don't know if that's, a consideration, but I appreciate this, and we'll knock on some doors to make sure that we have exhausted all opportunities.
Yeah, what I will say, Donna, just to help chime in a little bit, was that I think because of the Fox Hill only solution, right, there's been a strong advocate for neighborhood schools, which we've heard from multiple community meetings. So I think there's a lot to like about the existing Fox Hill site. So certainly when it comes to a single school option, that's been the front runner since we joined the project team several months ago. We have been made aware of other project sites. Bob, who seems to be, has been very involved from the beginning, has a lot of town knowledge, understands buildings and properties within town. But to Donna's point, if we need to take a deeper dive on that particular site, we can certainly pull the information and look at how maybe if that's available, if it's already in control and owned by the town. Oftentimes with recreational property, there's other potential restrictions. So there's some permitting and governance to get through, but I think it's a good suggestion. We'd be happy to take a look at it.
Sorry, I was muted. I cannot respond to the makeup of the school building committee, but we can certainly respond back to you. And the only other thing I want to say about this shared space, and I'm trying to think if it was John who made that comment. Yeah, I think it was John. I apologize if it seems like the trend is to push this mega school. That's not the intent whatsoever. I just, a single school option is easier to understand, right? This two school concept, one building, because that's all MSBA will entertain, just in our mind just requires a little more explanation. But there's no one here saying what the ultimate solution is. It really is your community, your school, your decision. And I just want to say that you hear these questions that are coming up. So that's why sometimes the focus may lend the conversation towards this combined school. But I assure you, there's no decision, no preconceived ideas of the solution here for you. I'm just going to say it one more time, though, as far as the shared space, all the spaces will be large enough to support simultaneous use by both schools as it relates to the cafeteria, the gymnasium, and the library. So that's it. But, money and the economy of scale doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most important thing to you. And so that's why we're asking you what's important to you. And that may not be it. So I promise it's totally open right now.
That's my dog, sorry. Sorry about that. So Jeff Searsma, you are unmuted.
Hi, thanks definitely for this community forum. I really appreciate the opportunity to listen to hear what the project thinking is, and also give us the opportunity to discuss. And Donna, actually, to be honest, I definitely appreciate the transparency from what you're giving to us. But I want to say, as a listener, to be honest, it does feel like the mega school is being pushed on us. And I want to say, from what I'm hearing from everyone else, and to be honest, with the people that I've walked around and talked to, it's because I live in the Foxville neighborhood, it's the exact opposite. We definitely prefer to have the smaller school and not have the combined schools, both for the benefit to the neighborhood, for the traffic, for the kids walking around, but also, educational benefit of the children too, because like Katrina was saying, the idea of having a first grader, second grader, it's such a large school that as a parent, that really would scare me. So I definitely want to point out and say, for the people of this community, from what I've discussed, is that the idea of a combined school is a non-starter for us. So I just want to absolutely iterate that we do not want to have that. So thank you.
And thanks, Jeff. We hear you, right? I have to say, total transparency, we have to study it. We have to, at this phase, give it as much thought and consideration for the preferred schematic, right? So we do need to continue to evaluate it. We do need to continue to vet it. It's MSBA. We don't have a choice. So I just we're not trying to ram it down your throat. We just have to follow MSBA's process.
Yeah, maybe I'll just follow it up quickly, Donna, and just say that it's unfortunate to hear that there's a large portion of the public that feels like this option, as as Donna put it, seems to be forced upon a lot of folks. And having been involved in all the community building committee meetings so far and meeting with the groups, it's a little disheartening to hear, but like Donna said, we hear you loud and clear. I think maybe one reason that might be true is that, as Donna mentioned again, was that the single school option is easier to understand. It's a close parallel to how the existing school operates now. Slight adjustment in enrollment, aside everything. And so there's some bigger philosophical issues to tackle in a combined school that the group has started to kind of peel back on. So if anything, maybe it's just from an equal or disparity of equal airtime between the two options being discussed, because there's some pretty big items to work out in terms of educational program and scheduling and that sort of thing. But I know we've said it so many times and it probably sounds like a broken record, but nothing has been decided. And thank you all for your comments.
Thanks. Next up, NM Spano. I'm guessing Nicole.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Donna. It sounds like you've been involved in a few of these with the MSBA. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So I guess what I'm hearing is that, we have to study it. We have to put as much thought and consideration into all of the into the plans. And I'm just trying to go back when we had major school changes, like the time starts, like when they changed the high school time start and everything. We were flooded with all of this information about how it's better for the high school students to sleep more. And it was constant. They made a change based on what was best for the kids. And the other night, I heard Bill Bolton talk about what's best for the shrimps and salamanders of the vernal pond. When we talk about what's best for our kids, and what
Nicole, can I
process
jump
you
in
have
for a
to
second? Because
address
you're
our
breaking up.
educational, the benefits of a large school, can they, as opposed to a small school? And when does that come up in the process?
I am
Nicole,
so
your
sorry.
message was broken up, so very tough to understand you.
Can you hear me now?
Same.
Same.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
better.
it cuts in and out.
I think
Okay.
what I heard, Nicole, was that you were asking when during the process do we talk about the benefits or challenges of a larger school? Did I get that right? Now we lost her. I think that's what she said. Um, are we allowed chat? That can people put comments in the chat?
I can turn it on if you requested. Yep.
Well, it might be just easier for Nicole. I think that's what Nicole was asking. When in the process do we talk about the benefits or the challenges of a larger school or a 640 student school, whatever that might look like? We certainly want to have that conversation. Talk about, I don't want to say, the pros and the cons. Again, it's really what is right oh my gosh, look at that cutie. What is right for Burlington and what is important to Burlington. There is no right or wrong answer here. It's what is right for Burlington. So we're happy to have that conversation and talk about what a larger school may have, what impacts that may have, for better or for worse.
Hello, am I up next? Can you hear me? Okay. So I just had a couple questions. I really like the question Katrina asked about the percentage um, of reimbursement, and I guess I just need a little bit more clarification on that. Sorry about this. About if that would be different depending on what option we went with. Will we receive similar percentage? I know it's quoted at 45%, similar, or what is going to end up being probably closer to 25. Is that dependent on what option we go with, or would that be the same with both? That's one concern I have, or one question. I do want the traffic analysis to really account for not only the students and how they're getting to school, but I haven't heard anything about the increased staff getting to the school if we were to combine, whether it be the 2-in-1 or the mega school that we're referring to it as. I'm not sure of the exact staffing numbers in Fox Hill. I am at Pine Glen currently, but Burlington does pride itself on staffing well, staffing our special education programs well. I've heard this numerous times throughout this meeting. We have teachers, IAs, guidance counselors, tutors, speech, psych, cafeteria staff, office, nursing. It adds up really quick. I mean, I'm at Pine Glen, which is the smallest elementary school currently. The latest staff list I've seen is 84 staff, and that's from the beginning of this year. I'm sure we've had some additions since then. I'm ballpark estimate thinking in order to staff a 2-in-1 school or a combined school, you're looking at 150 to 160 teacher cars on the road every morning. That might not be impacting the traffic at arrival and dismissal, but to me, that's cars that are going to be on the road weaving in and out of these side streets and the way to Fox Hill, all going to the same exact location. That's going to have an impact. I really think that needs to be considered. I haven't heard anything about not only just the traffic and the backing up, but just the immense increase that we're going to see of cars in these neighborhoods over time, especially early in the morning and again after school. Last concern I have is I keep hearing about this population decreasing, and I have my own beliefs on that. Like I said, I live in a neighborhood in Burlington, and in the last 3 years since my husband and I bought in, we have older families that are moving out with younger families moving in. So I've seen it myself that there are more families coming in. But one concern that isn't being considered is Burlington as a town is known for constantly adding to its infrastructure. We have new apartments popping up left and right. There's no way we can possibly consider what our population is going to be 5 years from now when there are apartments that aren't even being thought to be built yet. There's a whole project being considered on Mall Road in Burlington, which I'm hearing that there's possibility that apartments are going to be part of that construction. That is definitely going to add to our schools. That's definitely going to increase our student population. And it's something that isn't being considered in these numbers. So I really have a hard time, like it sounds like some other people on this call, getting behind the fact that Burlington's numbers are not, in fact, they're going to be decreasing as time goes on. I just don't think there's an accurate way to depict that. I think we need to prepare for these numbers to go up. In a 640 kids school, if that's what we end up with, what is that going to end up being? Is that close to 700? I don't know. But that's not a place I want to send my kids.
Amanda, can we wrap it up?
I'm good.
Sorry, thank you.
That's okay. All right. So Amanda, great comment about the increased staff as well, and that will absolutely have to be taken into consideration. You're 100% correct. I think we were counting about the same number as you are for staff per school, right? So that would be added traffic, it's added pavement, it's added, right? Going through there. So yep, that will absolutely be another consideration and thought about the impact of the site, the impact to the site, the neighborhood, the school, etc. So that will be accounted for. Steve, as far as the percentage of reimbursement, does it differ between the two? I don't believe it does, but I don't, it might.
There might be minor things between the two that differ a little bit, but I think at this point it would be irresponsible to say there's really any difference, much less, a significant difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it'll
So as
continue
long-
to change.
Yeah. So as long as MSBA approves and supports, oh, thank you. So she put it in the chat, Bob. As long as MSBA approves and supports your educational program, they will pay, of course, up to the cap, right? Up until the maximum of their reimbursement. So I don't think that one would trump the other over why one you get more reimbursement than the other. But again, that will play out a little bit more as we start refining the numbers and the costs. And then the population, again, we hear you, and there's that sentiment seems to be a popular one in Burlington. I can't respond to it really, other than unfortunately I'm the messenger here. MSBA does an incredibly thorough job with their enrollment. If there are different ways of approaching this, you can say thank you, MSBA, but we respectfully disagree with you, and we're just going to go build our own school. That's an option. Another option is to build a smaller school, Fox Hill School, and you have the Pine Glen, right? You can make that a bigger school to offset if you think you're going to have more enrollment, right? That's another option. Another option would be to build the 640 student school, and then you have the Pine Glen, right, as a backup should your enrollment population prove MSBA wrong. Then you have another school. There are pros and cons to every single one. I'm just trying to say, as we think about this, you have options, and it's just something to weigh as we go through the process.
Great.
And we know
Thank you.
you're not alone. We know you're not alone, right? With
Yes.
that.
Thank you.
So,
And just to kind of wrap up, the percentage that we should be expecting per the other meeting, that was roughly around 25%. We ballpark, yes, but just so people can set their estimates. We're quoted at 45, but we won't be getting a full 45. It's probably going to be somewhere around 25.
so MSBA says your reimbursement rate is 45%, but that's of eligible reimbursement. So yes, so your effective rate will be, I don't know if it's 25, but your effective rate will definitely be less than 45. Will definitely. And all of that, Steve, we're thinking we'll be able to have that when PDP or PSR?
The actual enrollment, or sorry,
No,
reimbursement?
the reimbursement. Or
Yeah, so
percentages, ballpark, right?
yeah, everything you said, Donna, previously is true in that the actual reimbursement rate is not at the end of the day the effective reimbursement. So we like to prepare districts, having done several of these, in the past, that it tends to get whittled away, and it really comes down to eligible versus non-eligible, ineligible costs. So what the MSBA has a very good track record with is reimbursement of special education beyond what's in their model when it comes to space summaries and space templates. So it really comes down to a function of how the program and some of the wants versus needs get put into the building. But to say it's 25%, it's really just an estimate. We don't know. We'll continue to refine that. The reimbursement percentage won't change, but as we get closer and closer to actual more detailed floor plans and identifying the scope, it'll become more clear. One thing that's changed recently is the MSBA has reconfigured their overall total project budget spreadsheet. So there has been some changes to that, but one item we do prepare districts for, and we can help, is do a bit of an educational session as we start to apply to the MSBA, and we start to get some of their review comments back on what they see as eligible, ineligible, and we have that discussion. We can help educate the public at a future community meeting, in addition to the building committee meetings as we go along, but just giving a bit of an educational session on what some of those intricacies are of the program. It's pretty detailed, and what I hope we can do is make that a little easier for you to understand using our experience and combined experience with Danisco as well.
I just want to state that it's after 9 right now, so we will stay on. But in the essence of time, if we could obviously try to hold on to that 3 minutes. There's still about 5 people right now with the hands raised. So we do want to make sure that we get everybody. So Elena McElroy, if I'm saying that correct, or if not, I apologize, but you're up.
Thank you. It's close enough. It's McElroy.
My
I'm a,
apologies.
oh, no problem. So I'm a Pine Glen parent as well as a direct abutter to the Pine Glen School. I just, I'm writing down things as I'm listening to a ton of information. Thank you guys for all that. So I want to kind of throw my thoughts out there to make sure that they're being looked at and thought of, and Hopefully you guys already even know answers to these, but um, so I had actually was at the meeting the other night and I did mention, in the traffic studies to please make sure that the Pine Glen drop-off parents are being considered, as well as all of the walkers, because we do have those three um, highly congested neighborhoods that do have a lot of walkers that come down to Pine Glen. I also wanted to make sure in the traffic studies that the before school program is being considered in that, because that's definitely a used program at Pine Glen, as well as the after school program. So as far as traffic goes, the studies may need to start earlier and later than what had previously been done. Um, Again, to reiterate the concern that a lot of people had about the decline in enrollment, I'm puzzled when I hear that, because in my daughter's classroom this year, she's had 4 new students join her classroom throughout the school year. So I'm seeing it from my daughter's eyes of growth of 4 new friends coming in. So I definitely, and as well living in the neighborhood, I definitely do see young families moving in. Um, so, in regards to if the 2 schools were to join and become one, the community spaces like the gym and the cafeteria, um, I was a little concerned when I saw that because it's 2 schools, they don't necessarily double in space. And I do understand there's obviously a schedule when it comes to eating times and gym and things like that. But I was thinking more in the winter months when we're talking indoor recess and we're going to have, multiple students trying to use these community spaces, that when you go from the Fox Hill existing to Fox Hill as a single school gets much larger, but when you combine Fox Hill and Pine Glen, according to your charts that you had shown earlier, it doesn't actually double in that size. So I'm just wanting to make sure that winter in New England is being considered, where we do utilize our indoor spaces, our community spaces heavily in the bad weather. Um, Also with the community spaces, the cafeteria, a complaint that I've heard from my children, at different times is, oh, well, I didn't have enough time to eat because I was waiting in my cafeteria line too long. I want to know how that will get impacted if you've got now 2 schools trying to get through cafeteria lines. Are those also separated? So that was a concern for me. Um, and then also, again, a very large elementary school, as it does many parents, gives me concern as far as the impact on the education. And I'm sure there's a study somewhere by someone to let us know if these larger schools have any sort of negative impact on young learners. Because I would find it really intimidating to enter such a large school. So I'm trying to look at it through the eyes of a small child. Um, and then my last 2 things are, if we do go with the one large school option, Pine Glen's still there. Even if we're going to use it for the BECC, or like administrative offices or whatnot, it still is an older school that's still going to require repair renovation. So we're not just getting rid of the cost of Pine Glen by not using it as the Pine Glen school. Um, and lastly, do the decisions that we make with the MSBA, if we do opt to keep our 4 school elementary school model, does that automatically remove us from the possibility of MSBA participation for a future high school project? Because my understanding is that the high school is in severe need as well. And I think that's all I had.
So thank you. You know, again, the enrollment, we hear everyone, and again, ultimately will be a decision and by the town on what the best solution is as far as preparing or projecting for the future, and anticipating and having the flexibility for future growth within the community. We hear you on the traffic. We will take all of your comments into consideration as we expand the traffic study. The high school, does this, I think your question was, does this preclude us from getting support from the high school with MSBA? Was that your question? more or less? Yeah, Bob?
Yeah, yes, that was the
Yeah,
question.
yeah, okay. No, I would say, if, whichever option, let's just assume you select just the Foxhill only option, it will probably preclude you from going back and asking for the Pine Glen in the future, right? They're giving you an opportunity now, and you're saying thank you, no thank you. So I would say anything that you do want to do with Pine Glen would be on your own. The high school is independent of this. I believe that you have submitted the high school for reimbursement and support by the MSBA for 10 years in a row. And because of the size of the high school and the current enrollment, which has decreased by half since the school was built, that there's other communities with greater needs, right? Your building definitely needs to be addressed, but it's not an enrollment issue. And so MSBA has a priority list of what how do you rise to the top out of these 90 communities that are submitting statement of interest? Overcrowding is the number one, and so maybe Dr. Conti, if I know he was here, I don't know if he had to leave, if he has anything else to offer, but it doesn't preclude you from submitting the high school as an SOI. But I think, you've submitted it for 10 years in a row, so you should be thinking about how you want to move forward with the high school project, regardless of the outcome of this project. We have other hands?
Yep, up
Or is-
next, Terry
It's a good thing there
Orphanos.
wasn't, it's a good thing there wasn't like a Celtics game tonight, right?
I see 4 more hands after this, just as a
Okay,
FYI, so.
you got it. You got it. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, everyone, for taking all your time to answer our questions. Hopefully, these are just clarifying questions. In your last 2 slides, you walked through the timeline of the process, but I guess I'm a little unclear still on what the decision-making process really is. Like, how does the town narrow down its single option? How does it present to MSBA? How much weight do they have? And I guess I'm just not sure how that whole process plays out. Do we give them an option and they say yay or nay? Do they force us to go a particular way? So if you can elaborate on that, that'd be great. And you answered a little bit of my question earlier with Katrina's questions, but well, you presented a series of options earlier in the meeting for both the Fox Hill site and the Pine Glen site. Will a cost analysis be done for each of those options and be publicly shared along with what MSBA, an estimate of what MSBA might cover for each of those options? So actually, those are just my 2 questions. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. So, what's the process? Do you get to pick one and then share it with MSBA? Pretty much. So MSBA is saying you need to look at, right, those 8 options, and there's going to be permeations of those too, but you need to look at both enrollments, and you need to look at a repair, renovation, addition, new construction for both, right? And then ultimately, it really is the community's decision which option is the most cost-effective, educationally appropriate solution for Burlington, right? As long as it's one of those. You can't say, well, we want Fox Hill only, but we want 4 classrooms per grade. That you can't do. It's either, Fox Hill, 3 classrooms per grade, Pine Glen, Fox Hill for 6 classrooms per grade or 3 classrooms per school. So as long as we stay within the parameters in which we have signed and agreed to, it really is ultimately the Burlington's decision. Just to give you an example, we're working in another community nearby you, and if their solution was a renovation, no expansion, a renovation, and MSBA said, Okay, you've proven it out. You've shown us why you think you can do it. It does not compromise the educational. It supports your educational program and goals, and you've shown how you could do it. So we support you and thank you. So as long as your solution meets your educational program, and it's within the confines of the enrollment certificate that we're bound by, then the solution is yours, or the choice is yours to which solution. So I hope that helps. When we do it, how we do it, that's what this next 7, 8 months is for, as we start getting into the options and going through the criteria. That's why we're asking you to weigh in. What's the most important criteria to you? And we're going to be having that conversation with the building committee as well, and really trying to take emotion out of it, looking at everything objectively, and ranking and evaluating each of the options. The cost analysis, yes, we will be, at preliminary design program, it's a very high level cost estimate. We don't really have anything to go on. It will be kind of general rule of thumb, what the current construction market is doing today based on the gross square footage and any nuances as it may relate to the site or renovation additions. But the same approach will be looked at for all of the options, and we are as transparent as we possibly can. We will share everything that we have with you. I think I
Yeah,
understood that. Steve, do
maybe
you
I
want to
could
jump
just,
in? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
maybe just to maybe help put a finer point on it, right? In the PDP phase that we're in right now, I like to say PDP is when you study many options. We're uncovering every detail, looking under every rock, every nook and cranny for potential options that are available. So PDP will be submitted to the MSBA on July 13th. It's pretty safe to say that we will probably not make any decisions about anything, not selecting anything. We may make a decision to take a couple of those options off the table by then. And I want to just clarify that by saying, the renovation only options, the easy, low hanging fruit that we don't want to really spend any more time than we have to studying those options. So July 13th, we'll submit that with all the options for the MSBA to review and consider. At that point, we'll move into the PSR phase, which will take us through December. And that's the process of the options that are left on the table in July, of narrowing those down to a singular option. So it'll be incredibly important for building committee meetings for the second half of this year, the community forums to be engaged if you would like to be a part of that process. And of course, sharing those opinions with folks on the building committee and otherwise. So hope that helps.
Okay, up next is Kevin. Kevin, if you can hear me, I sent you a request to unmute. We can try back in a second and move on to Diana Sagul.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for your time. And I know this meeting is going late, so I'll try to be quick, but wanted to just introduce myself briefly. My husband and I both went to the Fox Hill School. We lived in Arlington for several years. And then as our kids were ready to enter elementary school, we decided to move back. Mainly because although the Arlington school system is ranked higher than Burlington, we really wanted to get back to that community feel, small school feel in the neighborhood. And we were looking specifically in Fox Hill School because of the quiet neighborhoods and just the community feel and culture that it creates. So it is, disheartening to know that, we might be going down this road of a mega school. I do live very close to Fox Hill, so I am very concerned about the traffic, but the main reason, of my concern is that we all know that smaller schools are better for our children. And I think that needs to be the main priority that we're not really speaking a lot about. Obviously, I have many concerns about the enrollment and the numbers and does that work and the traffic, but when it comes down to it, I just don't feel that we're hearing enough about what's best for our children. The studies out there show that large schools are not it. And I can't even imagine, especially my daughter going into a school with that many kids last year as a kindergartner. It would have been very, very difficult for her. And the culture that Fox Hill creates in a small school is extremely important. I think our community from this call is speaking loud and clear on what we want and what we value. Our school committee several years ago saw that need for the 4 schools as well, and we had a unanimous vote for that, which I think is very important. And my question is, what has changed with that? I totally understand that as part of this process, we do have to research all of these options. But that being said, I think our community is speaking. Our school committee spoke several years ago that this is exactly what we need is these 4 schools. And besides the financial factor, I'm not really understanding what the change is here, especially learning now that likely we will only be getting 25% reimbursement around there. It just doesn't seem enough of a reimbursement or an incentive to change our values and what Burlington stands for. If this was on the ballot a few months ago and we elected school committee members and we, as just even a question, I think it would be very, very, very clear that the majority of Burlington would not want this mega school. And I think that we need to be very focused on the fact that we've elected these school committee officials to do what's best for our children. And I just don't, and again, want to stress that I understand we have to research these options, but I think we all know what the answer is. The best decision for our children and our neighborhoods is to have 4 elementary schools. Talking about equality, just want to talk about that. We do have, disbursements between different schools of different class sizes and such. And 4 schools is our best option of keeping that equality. Another thing I just want to stress that I don't think people are really seeing is that regardless, even if we do this mega school, redistricting is inevitable. The 640 people student school size is not going to satisfy the need. We are going to have to redistrict either way. And I think it's important that people know that. Just talking about traffic, I think a lot of people have talked a lot about the issues. One other thing I want to mention is I have a brother-in-law and sister-in-law that live out of town. Their children are on the bus for 30 minutes getting to their school. They choose to drive their kids that way. I think a lot of that needs to be considered as well. If Pine Glen families are coming over here, how long are their kids going to be on the bus? How much earlier do they have to get ready to get onto school? These are children that, mornings are hard for all of us. And I think if you have to get, ready that much earlier, you're going to have people dropping their children off. And I think that traffic has to be considered. And I guess the last thing I will say is that there is a narrative out there, and I know we've talked a lot about that, about this being a done deal, and it's extremely concerning. And I just want to, reiterate that our school committee spoke and had that unanimous decision. And while I understand we need to research these options, there's a lot of talk out there that it is a done deal. So I do want to be mindful of that and talk about how, the makeup of the committee and who's voting. And, it's just, there are concerning factors of that. I'm looking through my notes. I think that's it. But I appreciate your time and hearing me out.
Thanks, Diana. Elizabeth. Actually, Elizabeth, hold on one second, please. I'm going to try Kevin one more time. Kevin, if you're here and you can unmute. Okay, I'm still getting no response from Kevin, but let's go Elizabeth.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So first of all, thank you, Donna. This is a long night and I appreciate your time and efforts. And I think, we've all heard the community loud and clear tonight, so I'm not going to repeat all the things they've already said. I really hope the voting members of the building committee are hearing their constituents loud and clear tonight, because I think people are really speaking for the priorities of the community. So I just want to touch on one thing, which is this question about enrollments and equity and number of kids in a school. I think we can all, and I apologize for all this blinging here, I think we can all agree that we're not excited about the idea of a 640 kid school for, a 5-year-old going into kindergarten. But so let's look at the number of kids per school, sort of district-wide, right? Right now we have 4, and there's this proposal potentially to go to consolidate 2 and go down to 3. So one thing we can't control is the number of kids in the district, right? The state says enrollment's going to go down. Most of us don't believe it and think maybe enrollment's going to go up. But we're looking at a school for 50 or 75 years, and they're going to go up and down over the next several decades, and we can't control that. But here's what we can control. We can control the denominator in that equation, the number of kids per school building. If we go from 4 buildings down to 3, then every school gets bigger. Right now, the Pine Glen and Fox Hill combined have more kids than would fit in this mega school. They've got my numbers, and they're, I'm sure they change, but currently there's 752 students at Fox Hill and Pine Glen combined. So you're looking at a 650 school. That's 100 kids that get redistricted to Francis Wyman and Memorial. So every elementary school in the whole town gets affected by how we do this. And it makes a lot more sense to build the 325 school, which by square footage would be like, I think it was 50% bigger. You went from 65,000 to 90,000 square feet, something like that. So right now at Fox Hill, we're holding 427 kids in a 65,000 square foot building. You build an 80, 90,000 square foot building with flex space in it, it's going to hold the current enrollment. Sure, there'll have to be some redistricting. Things need to be balanced. Equity is important, and we do need to kind of shoot for having every school to be fairly balanced. But the way to do that is to renovate, rebuild, whatever we need to do at Pine Glen separately and protect Pine Glen and its population as it stands. And we do the Fox Hill, an appropriately educationally sized school for that age group. We do it at that size, and we put the right number of kids in that building, and we balance the 4 of them. That's going to actually be the least amount of redistricting, and educationally, it's so clear that that's the best thing for the kids. And I think Nicole's point is really well taken. We've heard more science about how to protect shrimp in a vernal pool than we've heard about how a big school is educationally better for the kids. And I think the community has really spoken tonight, and I'm so happy to hear that. But I think we need to look at the numbers and realize that 75 years from now, we might really miss that 4th building if we give it up. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands. There were a few messages in the chat. We can obviously look to address those now or later. I think there's more comments than questions.
Yeah, I think as I was looking at it, some more comments. Please listen to the parents. Thank you, Diana. This was from Elizabeth. Donna, at an earlier meeting, you mentioned you could ask MSBA if we could take funding for 325 Fox Hill, but we add a classroom per grade on Burlington's dime. Yep, I did, and they said no. I think they again are not wanting, and again, if respectfully, if Burlington truly feels that you don't believe MSBA's enrollment, it's totally up to you how you want to proceed. But they say they do not want to be supporting or building schools larger than necessary, whether it's on your dime or their dime. So you add an extra classroom, that means now you have to expand the cafeteria, then you have to expand the other support spaces. So they said no, that they feel that Dr. Conti did an excellent job advocating for the 18 students per grade, which actually already increased the size of the building and the number of classrooms. So I think other than that, we hear everyone on the traffic. We're looking at that closely and seeing what else we need to do. And I don't see any other questions. Do you, Bob?
One more hand was raised, so
Okay.
Julie,
Julie? Okay.
you're unmuted.
I just wanted to make sure, Donna, sorry for my voice. I just wanted to make sure, Donna, that my comments in the chat about the traffic on Westwood Street did not get lost.
Yeah, I've taken screenshots. Thank you.
Okay, great. I have witnessed the, I don't know what you guys call them, those things you guys throw down to count the cars that go by or whatever. And honestly, the cars parked on Fox Hill Road are sitting on top of them, and probably the same on Westwood Street for pickup. I do have a first grader at Fox Hill. I have been in the Pine Glen building. I've spoken to the Pine Glen staff as I was supervising a student teacher there myself these past few weeks. So I understand. I don't think either option is great, but I do think the traffic is going to be a big piece for those of us that live on any of these side streets off of Wilmington Road that lead to Fox Hill, being that Fox Hill Road itself has those speed bumps, and none of us will ever get those speed bumps. And this road was in disrepair for many years and was finally fixed just in the last 2 years, and it is not adequate for the road that has a school at the end of it, regardless, like the school we already have. To make that a bigger school without considering Westwood Street in and of itself it would just be ridiculous. Even in the snow removal, like I would think schools at the end of our street should get plowed first. Not true. The conditions, the kids waiting on the side of the road for the buses. My own son doesn't take the bus because the bus in the afternoon, he would wait a half an hour to get on the bus to then be brought home. He would have been home for a good 45 minutes before that. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration if you're going to be doubling the size of that school.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So I think we hear everyone's comments about the traffic loud and clear. And we understand the concerns about the enrollment. So what I can say is we hear everyone. We're going to relook at traffic. We appreciate everyone's comments. And as far as the enrollment, really that's a bigger conversation for the town. But is there one more? Is that Bill? Or
Yes,
was
Bill
that
raised
from
his hand.
before?
Bill Boyman.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. One quick question. You say the final decision is up to the community. Who do you actually get the final decision from? Are you listening to the select board, the school committee, town meeting? Who are you turning to say, what is your final answer?
Yes, all of the above. No, it really needs to be a process, Bill, and we want to make sure that any solution that is being put forward can be supported, right? Um, how do we do that, and how do we get there? I think all of these community comments and feedback is really important, and the folks as the school building committee really is ultimately the first process. They're the ones per MSBA regulations are the ones that are making the recommendation, but it does have to go through school committee, select board, your town meeting. So it really is a collective we. Steve, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly the MSBA's perspective is that's the whole reason for creation of a school building committee, is to empower a group to make those sort of decisions. And it's there are requirements in terms of local leadership, obviously superintendent of schools, school committee representation, members of the public. So they try to make sure you're pulling from a very diverse group, both from local government and just from town citizens. But every town, every district, every city is a little bit different. So it's really up to your local process, but certainly we've engaged town leadership to just understand, how the funding happens, the 3 town meetings, and just working out how the decision-making process happens in Burlington. Certainly things when it comes to class size policy, confirming the educational program, writing the educational program and space summary is school committee heavy, but it it does tag a lot of bases and require a lot of project stakeholders. So when it comes time to actually formally approve one particular option, which we are, we do have some time on, we can work to be a little more clear in the future community meetings of what that process is going to be and each of the steps we need to go through. If in fact that's beyond just the school building committee, which we have a strong feeling it is, it's just we need to work that out.
And Donna, if I just may, please, again, a few more comments were added just so we are not overlooking any of them. Some of them have already been addressed and answered. Some more, I'll make a few comments and then we can discuss later is, why do some parents feel the need to drive their kids to school when the bus service is available? Let's see, make sure we look at the traffic, the road, the sidewalks on Westwood. Again, I'm paraphrasing some of these. Earlier meeting you mentioned, you could ask the MSBA about funding for a school. Again, you addressed this one. Some thank yous to Diana. Nobody wants to send their elementary school age kids to a gigantic school.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much all addressed, and I don't know if the transcripts show the chats as well, Bob. For
They
the
will.
minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. But I think have we? I appreciate everyone staying on. It is late. There was a lot to cover up front. Going forward, hopefully the presentation won't be that long, and that we'll be able to have engagement and get off so that everyone can get to bed at a reasonable hour. But I really truly thank you. This was incredibly well attended, and we do appreciate your comments. We hear you. We hear the traffic, and we hear the desire for the smaller schools. So MSBA process, we do have to go through this. So please don't think we're dismissing your preferences or your statements or your beliefs. It's just what we have to do. So we're hoping that collectively, through the priorities of the community, priorities of the building committee, priorities of the school department, that a solution will rise to the top. That would be a preferred option. And then at that point, really the look, the feel, the makeup, what the school may look and feel like would really start occurring at the next phase during schematic design. So whatever the solution is, there's still would be a lot of opportunity for input and discussion as we move forward. Steve, do you have any parting?
I was just going to say, I think it was mentioned earlier, but on the website, the project website, the address that was given, foxhillproject.com, there is a contact section. So much like the chat feature here, feel free to submit any questions, comments, criticisms, curiosities that goes directly to the project team. Well, we do collect those and make sure that the entire project team can view them. If the answer isn't obvious, get that to the correct party to respond. But please feel free to use that if anything, it's been underutilized. So it's always there in case you need to reach us in between building committee meetings.
Yeah. So thank you. We will have building committee meetings, school committee meetings are coming up as well. So all of those dates, I'm assuming, are also put on the website. So stay active. We appreciate it. And we will see you back for a community meeting, I believe we said in July, as we can move along. So good night, everyone. Thank you very much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.